The following is a Full Velocity Radio production.
It's showtime! Race fans, this is what you saved your pocket change for. The greatest show in the 580, Southern Oklahoma Speedway. Off of turn number 4, coming to the checkered flag. He's going to set him up going into turn number 1, slide job.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Race Shop Podcast. I am your host, Jake Keel, coming to you live from the undisclosed race shop adjacent to Studio JK here at Monstar Productions and now Full Velocity Radio. It's great to finally say that we are a part of the Full Velocity team, as I will be showing up there on Full Velocity TV quite often. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank our sponsors here at the race shop. Of course, Southern Oklahoma Speedway for bringing us on down there at the racetrack there in Ardmore, Oklahoma. We want to thank Harold Fab and Chassis for your dirt track chassis needs, chassis repair, sheet metal, chassis scaling, bumpers, you name it. Bill Harrell over at Harold Fab and Chassis does it all. 580-504-9091. So give him a call. You'll be able to talk to Bill about anything you need for your modified or stock car. Crazy J's Kettle Corn. We don't want to forget about Crazy J's Kettle Corn out of Texas. They do great work with their kettle corn and pork rinds. So we want to give a big shout out to them. Jake's Dad Carbs in Mustang, Oklahoma, called Dwayne over at Jake's Dad Carbs, 405-640-6862. You'll be able to get a great deal on some F4 or R6 carburetors for all of your motorcycle engine needs. We got a really good episode here on the race shop for you today. We're going to have midget driver AJ Burns from Oklahoma in the hot seat tonight, and we're going to talk to him here in a little bit over the phone. But before, we're going to take care of a little bit of business around the country. We're looking at some big names winning big races around the country. Of course, Donnie Schatz locking up his 10th World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series Championship. So congratulations to Donnie Schatz for winning the championship. He also won the final A feature of the year for the World of Outlaws, getting his 22nd A feature win. So big shout out to Donnie Schatz, still dominating. Nobody can beat that 15 car. We'll see what can happen to him in 2019, but it's looking like that 15 car is going to continue to be the best out in the World of Outlaws. Scott Bloomquist taking home the win in the World of Outlaws Late Model Series A feature at the World Finals, but Mike Marlar taking home the championship. So a big congratulations to Mike there in the World of Outlaw Late Model Series. And as we are speaking, I'm recording this on Sunday. It should be coming out either Monday or Tuesday. Kevin Harvick just locked himself into Homestead, winning Texas. So congratulations to Kevin Harvick. We'll see who else locks himself in at Phoenix next week in the NASCAR Series. But without further ado, the guest that I'm talking to tonight, driver of the number 27 Midget on the Power I Series, AJ Burns. We're going to kick it to that interview now.
All right, and we are back after that quick break. We are sitting here in the race shop. I've got AJ Burns on the line here, Power I Midget Racer. He's on the line. AJ, how you doing tonight, bud?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Working on motor for trying to get back out racing some point before the year's over.Maybe DuQuoin.
DuQuoin, that'd be a fun little trip there. So we were talking about it a little bit earlier. You had a blow up in your last race.
Yeah, we were up in Kansas and had a pretty good run going and broke a rod bolt and ended up with a nice little fire and some cool photographs, but pretty much ended our Powri West season. I was hoping we could get back going a little faster, but we decided instead of going and trying to fix our Gertie that we had before to take on push forward a new project we'd been talking about doing, but was building a Honda Midget motor. And so that's been a huge undertaking, but we're literally putting it together right now.
Well, I mean, I'm watching the highlights you sent to me from that night, and man, it looked like you were flying. And then, of course, you sent me the picture of the car up in flames. That's an intense picture, but I mean, I'm glad that everything the night ended up okay, and you were able to walk back into the trailer at the end of the night.
We had that car hooked up, especially around the top, and we'd had a really rough night. I just wasn't comfortable the night before, and got immediately from hot laps on Saturday. We had that car rolling and started ninth in the feature, and within maybe 10 laps we were up to third, and I kind of tightened up a little bit. Car was super tight, but I liked it tight, and kind of got a little tired, faded back to fifth, got a pretty long yellow, and kind of got my arms back under me and went on restart and started moving forward again and going down the backstretch, and right at the end of the backstretch popped and flames came in the cockpit, but they were the photo actually makes it look like there was a little worse than maybe it was flame wise. By the time we got to a stop, there was just barely a little flame on the headers, but that cameraman, he got it right on time, right as the big ball of flame came.
Kind of the right time for the photographer to get that picture, was able to get the best look at it, huh?
Yeah, I keep saying that it was good that we had that photo, because that was while the fire wasn't that big, that was about as much damage as it did to the motor. It really put a big old hole inside the block and tore up a bunch of stuff inside.
So you were telling me earlier you live in Newcastle, Oklahoma. Your parents live in Blanchard, but you're from California. Where in California are you from?
It's technically San Bernardino County, which is right in the middle of Southern California. But I actually grew up at a small ski resort community up in the mountains at like 8,000 feet. Lake Arrowhead, Running Springs, California, technically speaking. And so, yeah, I was in a little resort town for literally my entire childhood. But I grew up racing motorcycles, and that took me all over the country, and eventually kind of fell in love with Oklahoma. And so when I started looking at schools, OU was my first choice, and came out, toured, fell in love with campus. And really after I came and did the campus tour here, I was pretty much sold. And so I came out here, and then about 2 years later, my parents followed me out as soon as my sister graduated high school. So my sister goes to OU, I go to OU, my parents live in Blanchard. We're full Oklahoma transplants. So
yeah, the whole family's here. They're all Sooners now.
Yeah, we bleed crimson. We spent the whole night last night, whole family sitting around the couch, losing our mind over the game in Lubbock. So
we did too. The Texas Tech, the Lubbock stadium, they go crazy there, and that's always a crazy game whenever OU comes down there.
That interception on the 2-point conversion, you had all four of us standing up, yelling, screaming like crazy.
Yeah, that was us too over there. But so you all moved here from California. You started in motorcycles. Was it in motocross, or was it some other kind of motorcycles?
No, it was motocross basically from age 7 to 17. That was, I thought the world started and ended with motocross racing. I had every intent of racing professionally, racing supercross and outdoors. And I had actually put together a deal, was looking at riding for the J-Star KTM team, last year of amateur, first year pro. Right about the same time, I had a small injury with one of my hands, took some time off. As soon as I came back, I started having issues with both my hands. Went through 6 months of doctor's appointments and physical therapy and ended up getting diagnosed with early onset arthritis in both hands.
Oh, wow.
And at 17, there's not really the only thing they can do to kind of make it better is, arthritis medication, but it kills your liver. So they're not going to give it to a 17-year-old kid. So basically stopped me in my tracks. That was basically the last step before turning pro. And that was, motorcycle racing, especially on the amateur level, there's no off season. It's January 1st through December 31st. And I didn't really have much of a social life. I went all the way through on public school, but basically I went to school for 5 hours a day. And as soon as I left school, I'd head straight to like an hour drive to the racetrack. I'd be there for a couple hours, gym a couple hours, get home, eat a little food, do a little homework, get up in the morning and repeat. So when it was right at the end of my senior year of high school, when that all kind of came to a screeching halt, I kind of had that was all I knew, and I really had to reinvent myself. So the timing to move to Oklahoma and transition into race car it all fit together real nice there. It was a rough deal for me, just because it's like almost like making me learn how to breathe again. So I had to find something new and figure out who I really was.
So you came from the motocross, you had the hand problem there, and then you decided to come to Oklahoma and go to OU. Did you ever think that you were going to be able to race anything at that point, or were you just kind of in a situation where you're like, hey, I should probably go a different step from here?
Well, I always had this irrational thought in my head. Even though I raced motorcycles my whole life, I always had this irrational thought that I was going to go race Indy cars, because Jeff Ward had been incredibly successful, multi-time national champion motorcycle racer, and made an excellent transition to IndyCar racing with Penske. So I always thought in Indies, the 500's always been a huge deal in my house. My dad's former sprint car racer, and so he was a CRA guy in the 90s, and I wasn't really around sprint car racing much growing up. He quit in 98 right after my brother passed away, and he went, and so I didn't really grow up around the sprint cars as much, but still Indy was such a big deal in my household. And so I always thought whenever I quit racing motorcycles, I'd go and try and go race car racing, but I always thought it would be more IndyCar style. But I had an opportunity to hop in a Ford Focus Midget a couple times in California before I came out here, and adapted pretty quick, felt pretty comfortable in the cars. And as soon as I got out here, my main focus was trying to figure out how I could get myself in a race car. And that's kind of where that whole OU Sooner One Racing Midget team kind of gave birth. It was a way to get me some kind of connection to midget racing. At first, I didn't know if I was going to be the driver or not, but I just wanted to have some kind of connection and get the first step and make the connection, so at some point I could end up in a race car, and kind of ended up being right off the bat with that whole deal.
So that leads me right into what I was getting ready to ask you. Tell us a little bit about the Sooner One racing program, and what exactly the intention is of the whole racing program there at OU.
When we started that deal, and it was me, Brandon Boggs, his sister Courtney, Lane Heimbaugh, and Trey Marcham. We were all going to school at OU, and I kind of had this idea to start it. I actually sat behind Brandon, didn't know him from Adam, sat behind him in an engineering class, and we got talking first week of school. I went and filed a couple applications to get the team started as like a school, an actual like school-backed team. And it just kind of started rolling, and we ended up on like the front page of like the National Speed Sport website and all
Yeah.
that. And that whole first couple of weeks of it, we had a full firestorm of momentum going. And it really looked like we were going to be able to build a pretty nice program right off the bat. But when it actually came down to writing checks, getting products, we were really we were a bunch of kids and nobody was taking us seriously. Nobody thought we could really follow through and do it. And, but we were probably more stubborn than anything. And everybody telling us we couldn't made it more. And so that first year we had initially planned to have Trey, and we were trying to do a 2-car deal that first year. We'd had some commitments from some people that made it, we thought we could make it happen. And basically everything fell through. But a gentleman out in California, Walt Boyd from Macro Air, he ended up offering up. He had an old Ellis with a Ford Focus in it, and he ended up offering up a complete car for us to use. And so when we found out it was a Focus, kind of took Trey and Heimball out of the program because they had a lot better opportunities and better equipment for Chili Bowl. And so then it became between me and Brandon Brandon didn't want his first time in a midget to be Chili Bowl. I wasn't much better. I'd only been in a midget 3 times before. And so we showed up at Chili Bowl with that Focus, and that whole first year was with the Focus. And as long as we were on small tracks, it was all right. I mean, for us, just getting the Chili Bowl that first year and making it out to quite a few power ride races was a win. I think I got like 9th at Port City that first year, and that was kind of like highlight of our season was I made a top 10 in a Focus. And
yeah,
pretty much we were hoping that we could, at every track we showed up to, we were hoping it would slick off, because basically once it slicked off, I could still hold it wide open in the Focus and never have to lift. And we were about equal with pretty much everybody else. So, but if track was big at all or track was locked down at all, we were way off. So that fall we got together some stuff, and university was kind of putting pressure on us that we needed to be less about racing, more about engineering and building stuff. And so that's when we tried our attempt at building our own chassis, which didn't go great. But with that kind of came a little more money, and we were able to go get us a Gertie Chevy motor, and so we got a good motor in it and started just slowly building that up. Went to Chili Bowl, that chassis didn't work great. Went back, changed a couple things, went to Port City. I think it was even worse. I ended up flipping 2 nights in a row at Port City. It was the weirdest backflips I've ever seen in my life. That car was so tight, and then you turn, wouldn't turn, and all of a sudden it'd snap around, and you were like go from pushing to backwards and literally twisted. Second night, twisted spline off the axle. It was just weird and ill handling as can be. And so we had bought one of Andrew Felker's bikes.
Yeah.
One of his rollers to basically just take measurements for our chassis and then cannibalize all the like axles and wheels and shocks and all that off of it.
Yeah.
And so basically after Port City, we made the decision that we were going to bench the chassis we built and go back to running, go put together a spike. And we actually, after we put together that spike, kind of got in groove with things, and we had a decent year that year. We had a couple really good ones. I drove from like 18th to 4th one night at I-44. Won a heat race at Port City. Was actually started front row like 2 times in a row at Port. One time I really screwed over Grady Chandler and ended up us both going to about mid-pack on the first lap. And then second time I got turned on the second lap and ended up flipping down the front straight and running second. So, but we had some decent runs going that year, and kind of seemed like everything was really going well. And right about that time, there was a team inside our race shop on campus that had a solar car. Yeah. And they ended up catching the car on fire inside the race shop. And ended up being a big deal where lawyers got involved and they came and did a risk analysis of all the teams that were in this race shop on campus. And we didn't make the cut because when you Google search midget racing, you get crash reels, and they basically told us that we either needed to drop our speeds to 75 miles an hour or race one car at a time. And basically it was an ultimatum that was incredibly unrealistic. And so we made the decision that to fold the program. And we had a dean on campus that really didn't want us there in the first place. And we kind of circumvented him, and I think it was a little bit of a power struggle after that. And it was a rough deal. I loved that campus. I loved what we were doing with that team. I loved everything we were doing there. But at the same time, it just became a major headache for us. And ultimately, our big deal was we wanted to go racing. And so at the end of that year, we kind of folded things, and I broke out and started racing on my own after that. But that was really up until this year, that was my last time running a full season. We've been scattered with, heard motor in 2016, kept me out for a couple months, came back, had a real good run up in Jacksonville with the national guys. Ended up, I was running like sixth the first night and flipped. Second night was running eighth and had a oil pressure light come on, but just made me, it was one of the first times where on the national tour I felt like I was actually like a part of it. Yeah. Like I was a contender and I could run with the big boys. And we Kenny Brown offered up some help for us to come race with the national series full time. Nothing big, but just a little stuff here and there. And so 2017, we had a full intention of going and racing national tour. And like a week before the season opener at I-44, my mom had a stroke and ended up spending 2 months in the hospital and a bunch of time in a rehab facility. And it was, she kind of required our full attention from my family. And so basically I raced one show in like August at Creek last year, and I ran I-55 up in Peevely in Missouri, and that was pretty much it for me last year. So I basically took almost a full year off of racing to tend to her, and she's back better now. She's probably, I say she's about 95% of where she was before, and she still gets better. So it was quite a, for me, when I got to Chili Bowl this year, I was just so rusty, and so I was just tentative in the car. I was worried about tearing stuff up, and we are as a budget team as you can get. We travel in a 14-foot borrowed trailer, but we always try and make sure the car looks really good, doesn't look like it's coming out of a borrowed trailer. And basically all the money we have, we put in that race car. So we came this year. Chili Bowl didn't go great. First couple of years, races of the year didn't go great, but we kind of started rolling and just, finishing main events, try and get top tens and just kind of move up from there. And yeah, and it was, I kind of felt like I was in a rut for a while, and I kind of got to around 10th place position, couldn't really get going. Kind of felt like I was beating my head against the wall, and then all of a sudden I come out in Kansas, the weekend we broke, and I was terrible the first night. It was one of the worst races I felt I'd had all year, and then came back the second night, and I passed our points leader and passed, tracking down and passing. And it was, for me, like it's kind of like I felt like I should have been doing that all year, and it was kind of, for me, it was like proving to myself, man, I can do this. And then when that thing popped, half the heartbreak was the night, just having such a good night, and half the heartbreak was trying to figure out how I was going to pay to get that thing fixed. So it was kind of two things working with each other. And I literally hopped out of the car, sat down on the track or on the wall, dropped my helmet, Wasn't mad, wasn't throwing tantrum, just bummed. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, it's one of those things. I was a budget racer whenever I raced micro sprints, so I completely understand that. I mean, sometimes you're on, sometimes you have this great night, and then all of a sudden it can just be taken away from you like in an instant. And so, you know, what attracted me to your story was, of course, the 1OU car, and seeing that. And at first I just thought that this kid was some big OU fan and wanted his midget to look like, just have a big OU on the side of it. But then someone told me about the story and what y'all were trying to do there. And, you know, it was really incredible what y'all were trying to make happen there at OU in the engineering program with that 1OU midget. But it's great to see you running that 27 now on your own, and you know you're having a little bit of a success there. It looks like you're just a couple pieces away, and really been following your last couple of years pretty closely. So we're proud to see you out there and supporting that number 27 cards. We're hoping you start getting that big run, but you know, what is it about midget sprint cars that makes you want to be in a midget?
Yeah, it would be a lot cheaper for me to either go buy a micro or a sprint car right now. But man, you know, my dad was a sprint car guy, and that was all. He raced Supercross professionally in the '80s, and his first race car he got into was a sprint car, and that's all he ever raced. And then basically for me, I hopped in a midget. That was the first car I had the opportunity to get into. It's really the only thing I've been able to drive. I'd love to go drive. I'd love to have a micro, midget, and a sprint car and not have any off weekends. But for me, the midget, you know, everybody says it's the most difficult car to drive.
Yeah.
You have the mixture of crazy power, short wheelbase, you know, quick reaction times. They're twitchy as hell. And for me, I guess I can't compare them because I haven't raced a sprint car. I haven't raced a micro. But, you know, you got me with that one. I don't know about what specifically about midget racing. I think Chili Bowl kind of captures it on a whole. And I think probably the biggest thing for me in midget racing is everybody's looking how to make things better. People will experiment with weird stuff. We currently have air shocks off of snowmobiles on our race car right now that we're playing with and have been working great. And
interesting.
I talked to sprint car guys about it, and they're like, "Oh man, you need to throw those in the trash. Just go with what's proven and what you know, and don't be playing with all this weird stuff." But I go and talk to like Flea from Boss, and he is just like a kid in a candy shop talking about this stuff. And I think midget racing probably more than anything. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an inventor. I'm an engineer. I always want to try and make things better. And I feel like midget racing, out of the three major forms of open wheel dirt track racing, is the most apt to trying new things and experimenting and doing weird stuff with the cars. And for me, I'm always trying to build a better mousetrap, and I get that from my dad. So I think that's probably what leads me to being so attracted in midget racing. And then also kind of, if you look at like, I love a different path than a lot of these kids are taking. I don't have a ton of interest in going NASCAR racing. I'm an open wheel kid. I had the opportunity to go race a electric go-kart at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And the first time I walked in to that place, and the fact that it was on the parking lot in the infield next to the museum, but I just got to race there. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And I would love to. I'm actually better on road courses than I am on ovals, because if you think about how you do like line selection and passing on a road course, is a lot similar to motorcycle racing.
Yeah.
The ovals have actually, I've had to break a lot of bad habits on ovals, just stuff that doesn't carry over and is actually negative. So I'd love to go race Indy cars, but if you look at, of the three forms of open wheel dirt track stuff, midgets get the most national attention, most press. They're National Midget Driver of the Year, normally get some kind of big ride for the next year, whether it's Outlaws, NASCAR, whatever. Yeah. They get a lot of press. And I don't necessarily know if that's fair. I don't, I think probably guys winning the USAC sprint car title should get just as much, if not more, but it's kind of the way it is. And so I kind of want to ride that train and play with it.
Well, the non-wing side of everything in a sprint car and open wheel, it's just, there's no comparing to the kind of wheelman you have to be in an open wheel sprint car, midget, micro, compared to putting a wing on it that essentially turns the car for you. But
yeah, I've never driven with a wing, so I can't knock on it. But in my heart, I'm a non-wing guy, and so unless we're running those NEMA midgets up in the East Coast with on pavement, that's pretty much the only time you'll find a wing on a midget. And so I'd love to go race something with a wing, but I'll always set non-wing as my priority.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's something about non-wing that makes people a better wheelman. Just look at some of the guys that are up there in NASCAR and IndyCar now that have come from the dirt tracks. There's Brian Clausen was a perfect example of what non-wing could do for a driver's skill set.
Well, and I think you look at the guys, you look at guys that are good in specifically a midget. The guys who are really good in a midget can hop into pretty much anything and be really good. Whether it's a sprint car, wing sprint car, or anything, you drive a midget typically a lot straighter than a non-wing sprint car, and so it's not a crazy big jump to how straight you run a non-wing or you run a wing car. And you look at these guys who are really good in midgets, and they can pretty much be really good in anything. Now, take a wing sprint car guy and throw him in a non-wing sprint car or just even a midget. You see a lot of struggles. Like when Shane Stewart pulled the wing off and ran that show in New Mexico a couple of years ago, Shane's a hell of a wheelman, and that did not end up well. Yeah. So I think something specifically with the midgets, man, I think it prepares you to get in the most makes you the most versatile driver. You can really hop in anything and be comfy pretty quick. Look at McDougal. McDougal spent a bunch of time in micros and midgets, and this year he hops in, non-wing sprint car, Silver Crown. And first, what are you in, fourth in a Silver Crown debut?
Yeah. The guy's been incredible all season long.
Jason's, I remember a couple years ago, he was so fast in a midget with the Powri West series, and it would always be like he'd get to lap traffic, and it was like no matter whatever move he made, even if looking from the outside, you go, oh, that was the right move. I always end up getting tangled up with lappers and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, as soon as this kid catches that break, he's going to be so good in a midget. And honestly, I don't really want to race against him once he gets that figured out. And I think this year you've really got to see him blossom, and it's been impressive. And I'm not an Oklahoma born and raised, but I consider myself a transplant, so I've been rooting for his success up there in Indy.
Well, I'm born and raised here in Oklahoma. I was raised at the State Fair Speedway before they tore it down, and I've always been a sprint car guy. I've always been a wing sprint car guy. I was an outlaw guy, but then racing a micro, I am too tall to get in a car with a wing on it. I just didn't fit, and so I got this taste of non-wing, and I've never been able to quite get rid of it ever since. But, we kind of have the same opinion on a guy like Jason McDougal. For a long time, I wasn't really a big fan of him. I I didn't see the talent there. And then there was one night at Port City I was there, and it all just clicked in my brain, and I was like, this dude's one of the best in the country, and you're going to find that out real soon. And I mean, it sounds like he's going to be the who's who of who's going to put him in the car next year, because I mean, he's been money all season long.
Yeah, I mean, even you got to see, I think just racing. In 2017, we had this plan to go race with the National Series, and it wasn't because I thought I was too good for the West Series or anything like that. Honestly, I mean, I hadn't won a race in the West Series, so it was nothing to do with that. I've always had the opinion I'd rather get my ass kicked on the big stage, and just because I learn a lot. When I raced motorcycles, we didn't have a lot of money, and my parents gave me the option we could race 30, 35 local races a year and not race the big amateur national races, or we could race 7 or 8 big races a year and just, not race at all aside from that locally. And I, at a pretty young age, took the option to go race at the big races. And man, I sucked. It was 4.5 years of going to amateur national races before I made my first main event. And then I went to my first amateur national in 2004, and it wasn't until 2010 the first time I got a top 10 and got a trophy. And all of a sudden things kind of clicked for me, and I went from being a kid that was, struggling to make main events and then struggling to get top 10s and stuff like that, to within a couple months, I kind of made, this light switch deal, and I was a top 5 kid in the country in my age group and, skill set. And so all of a sudden it kind of worked out for me. And for me, that was really like the paying off of, I don't think I ever would have got that as good as I did by staying at home and racing local races. The big races gave me that draw. And I think it's kind of the same deal when I go race a national show right now. Going to run a 2-day show with the national boys, and I feel like I learned 5 weeks worth of knowledge in a weekend. And I think part of that is we flee from Boss, him and Austin Brown. They help us out a ton at the national shows, helping with setup and just in driving advice. And my dad, he knows as much as anybody about driving, but his opinion is I don't listen to him, but I'll listen to somebody else. So I don't know how true that is, but I love going on and racing with the national shows, and with fuel as cheap as it's been the last few years, you're talking about $150 difference to go between racing West and national. And so we had this whole plan worked out where we were going to do it, and I knew I was going to spend the whole year, probably most of it, getting my ass kicked. But I was totally fine with that, just to be able to go out and learn. And our plan was we'd race prioritize national and then race West on off weekends that didn't conflict. But that whole deal kind of went down the drain when my mom had her stroke. And so since then, it's basically just been whenever I can get out and drive, whenever we can afford to go to the races. And we ran most of the West Series before, with a couple national shows mixed in before we blew up that motor. So it was, basically I just wanted seat time.
Yeah.
After a year out, I wanted to drive, and that's probably the thing that most of these kids have up on me is they grew up at I-44, Port City, or wherever their local micro track was, and they came from juniors and then restrictors, micros, and then got in midgets and all that. I literally, for my 3rd race ever in a midget, was Chili Bowl, and that I had no 4-wheel experience before that. It was all on 2 wheels, and so these kids have me beat on seat time like no other. Even some of these kids that are 15, 16 years old, they've still run hundreds more races than I have. So I'm trying to catch up as fast as I can.
Well, I mean, that seems to be the blueprint of making a great driver anymore is seat time, starting them young, junior sprints, outlaw carts, whatever. and taking them up through the ranks. But I mean, you make a great point, and it's something that is admirable, is that you're willing to go out there and know, we're probably not going to have the best season this year, but we're going to go learn, and we're going to learn from the best in the country. And, that's something you don't see a lot of people do. There's a lot of people that would not take that opportunity because they can stay here in Oklahoma and win 32 micro A features instead of going and getting your butt kicked, but learning. And
yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's my deal is I'm not real afraid of failure. I think it was because I sucked for so bad when I raced motocross for so long. When I raced motocross, and I was so bad for so long, and then I finally got it, and I got to the point where I was a big dog. I was one of the guys. And, when I showed up, it was like, I'm going to have to beat that kid today. It wasn't like just some random kid. And then, and so I think that's why I'm a little more okay with, going to get my ass kicked on the national deal with the race car deal is, I've already sucked way worse. I'm way better in a midget than I was for the first probably 2/3 of my career on a motorcycle. And I figured that out. So, if I can just, go out, get the time, the hardest transition going from motorcycles to race cars for me was I got to ride 4 or 5 days a week on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
We've seriously considered getting an outlaw cart for me, not to go race, to try and get little oval carved in somewhere here by my house. Just go drive a couple times a week, even if it's by myself. Pull the wing off, drive by myself, and just to go get some kind of seat time, because with the race car racing every other weekend, it's tough for me to like have a good night, and I want to keep that momentum going, and it's like, man, I got to wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When I'd have a good night, when I would have a good race on motorcycle, I was, good race on Saturday, and I was, practicing at, noon on Monday.
Busting your tail all week.
Yeah. And so, and I think probably the best example of a kid who's been incredibly benefited by seat time is Tucker Glassmeyer. Tucker, you look at Tucker's progression over the last 3 years, from his first year in you're going on the national tour to now, just that many races and that good of equipment. He's progressed so much. And I watched his feature from Grain Valley this year, and that was a really tricky racetrack. And it was, so easy to make a mistake. And he ran 30 perfect laps.
Yeah.
And won that feature. And I was blown away. And you look at where he was 3 years ago, and you wouldn't think it was the same driver. And it was, so I really think seat time in great equipment has helped him so much. And so that's, I think we have while we don't have a lot of money, we have a really good race car. And so I think, the more time I can get out on the racetrack, I'm not super worried about going and getting a ride with somebody else. I'm just trying to build up what we have. And I mean, we don't mind working on the race car during the week and all that. We're just trying to get out and, get to as many races. Up until about 8 months ago, we were in a 1997 Ford F350 dually that barely ran, and that thing finally died, and so we have a newer truck now, but we're still in a little teeny tiny trailer. We rarely get hotels on the way on to or from the races, or while we're there. We normally stay when we're at the track. If it's a 2-day show, we'll stay in the trailer. If not, we sleep in the truck. But man, we park next to a semi and with our little trailer, and it's always feels nice when you can beat some cars out of the big rigs out of your little 14-footer.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, as we saw Tim McCready won the World 100 with a big dually truck and a regular enclosed trailer. So, I mean, the trailers never win a
trailers
race.
don't win races.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
and I've also been a big proponent as money doesn't win. Like, I've gone to the defense of quite a few of the Keith Coons drivers because I get sick of hearing about all these spoiled rich kids and everything. I can tell you, I've seen a lot of fast kids that never got good. Even though those kids have money, they're busting their butt and they're fine tuning the craft. Don't begrudge them for their parents having money. They still have to go out and figure out how to drive a race car. And, I think that those kids take a lot of flack, and I have no problem with them. I think some of them, there's good kids and there's bad kids there, but I don't think just inherently because they have money means that they're spoiled or they don't deserve it. I think the race car industry has kind of got a little out of whack with that, and this is coming from a kid that doesn't have any money at all, so I should probably be the one that hates the Keith Coons Renner ideal the most. But look at Tucker, even Sam Johnson this year. Sam Johnson had a great year. I actually had a run in with him at the first race of the year at I-44. Everybody was up in arms over it, giving the kid crap, and I took to social media and in his defense, and I was like, it's his second time in a midget. He spun out. He literally spun out in front of me. I had nowhere to go, and everybody was blaming him, and I'm like, man, I've been in a midget a bunch of times, and I still spin out. So give a kid a break. He is so much better at the end of this year than he was. He didn't make it out of the C main at I-44 earlier this year, and he's had some top 10, maybe even a top 5 run this year. So he's had a huge year in progression, and so even if these kids are rich, they still got to figure out how to drive. And so I got a lot of respect for those kids, and also it's a lot of pressure driving for a team like that. You can't have a bad night. I have a bad night, nobody notices. That one of those kids has a bad night and it's full of ridicule. So, I'd love to have the money and just the fresh parts. It's not even necessarily the motors, it's fresh parts. I don't think that whole program over there is a cakewalk, and they still got to figure out how to drive those cars.
Well, you can always tell the ones that are there resting on their parents' money. I mean, usually they're out of it as quick as they were in it. But
it doesn't last long.
A guy like Sam Johnson, I mean, he's come out of nowhere, and
he was literally in flat carts last year.
Yeah,
Sam Johnson raced flat, like the go-kart, not even like outlaw carts, like flat carts last year.
Right, and then to go sit in a midget in one of the best midget teams in the country and pull off the kind of year. I mean, hats off to him. I mean, Tucker Klossmeyer's, like you said, another great example of a guy that, has just been kind of needing that push, the next level in his brain, and then it happens, and he's had an incredible year. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit. You said you go to OU. What are you majoring in?
I'm an entrepreneurship major. I started off as an engineering major. I ended up taking a couple of years off school, kind of in the middle, and then came back and when I came back to OU, I was decided I was going to change from engineering to entrepreneurship. I really felt like the engineering kids were really good at, like, you give them specifications, kind of like a blueprint, and they can design a piece. But there wasn't enough creativity. They couldn't come up with anything on their own. And I wasn't happy how my engineering classes were kind of laid out. It was very, very cold, very dry. There was no creativity. And for me, like, I love the creativity side of, like, designing new parts. And so I kind of made the switch to the entrepreneurship degree, and it's been a great transition. I was kind of struggling in school beforehand, and basically since switched gears, I've had really good had great grades, and it was a good move, both for me, long term wise, and just like for me mentally. I've always been a kid that was really good at school, so for me to struggle, it was a little rough. And for me, I'm a person, if you can engage me and get me interested, I'll blow your mind with what I can do. But if I'm disconnected at all, I'm terrible about, being able to sit through it and get a good grade. And so the transition was a good one for me. And now I graduate next December, so I'll finally be done.
That's awesome, man. It's always great to hear that. You go to school, you race. What kind of hobbies do you have outside of racing and going to school?
I'm not much. I run a small research and development company with a couple of OU alum. That's pretty much taken up the majority of my spare time. We've been working on a neck brace for auto racing that really targets concussion wise, and we're working on a deal to you'll see something from that next year, beginning of next year with us. But that takes up a lot of my spare time. So basically, if I'm not at school, work, or racing, I'll probably be on a computer doing something business wise for that, or I'm always trying to find sponsorship for the race car. And so I send out sponsorship proposals all the time, kind of like the theory, if sound out enough, one will happen. And so I'm pretty good on Photoshop, and I'll take a random company and I'll Photoshop them all over the car and send it out and see if I can get anything to bite.
So you mentioned work. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about that day job. You told me a little bit about it, but go ahead and tell the folks what your job outside of school is.
My day job, though, that actually pays my bills, is I'm a cashier at Victoria's Secret. It was literally supposed to be a one-night only job. I was dating a girl that worked there, and my little sister worked there. And they convinced me to come help out for one night. That was 2.5 years ago, and I'm still there. The girlfriend quit, and we broke up shortly after that. My little sister is now my boss. And so it's been interesting. I work with like 32 women, and I'm the only guy, but they keep me up at the cash register. I don't make my way out onto the sales floor. I literally can't tell you anything about the product, but I'm a decent conversationalist. My race car racing has made it so long lines, angry women, that doesn't scare me too much, and so they pretty much let me run the cash register side of things and let me do my own deal. And it's not too bad of a gig. They work really well with my school schedule and my racing schedule. And as far as like a college retail job, it's probably the best pay I'm going to get. So working with all the girls is interesting at times, but at the same time, I pretty much I live in a college town. I pretty much see every girl in Norman at some point or another. So it's not the worst place you could work.
That's got to be a interesting talking point with all the girls out at OU.
Yeah, normally it comes up in my classes, and they'll ask me, "Where do you work?" And I'm always kind of like hesitant because first off, I don't want to give off the impression that I'm not like straight, and then the second deal is I don't want to give off the impression that I'm like creepy, and so. It's always kind of a tightrope, but normally I try and let them see my personality first, and then bring in the Victoria's Secret thing. Hey,
that's pretty interesting. You don't hear that very often. Of course, like you said, you're pretty much the only male that works at that specific store, probably even in this area. But
they got a few guys that I think there's a guy that works at Penn Square up in Oklahoma City, and then Quail Springs up at their mall. I think they got a guy up there too. but traditionally, most of the guys that work at Victoria's Secret aren't necessarily straight. And so it's a little different than me working there. They'll have those guys out on like the sales floor and helping with bras and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I can check them out. I can take the sensors off. I can put it in a bag, and that's about it.
So you work at Victoria's Secret. You help run a research and development company. You go to school. You race. I mean, is there any time for personal life in there?
Not a ton. I think that's probably the reason I'm still single, is I can't get a girl to like. They get enticed by the whole race car driver, Victoria's Secret discount, stuff like that. But then they're like, man, are you really going racing this weekend? Can you put down that computer for an hour? Yeah. And so that's probably what reasons I'm still single. But I do mix in. I'll binge watch a little Netflix here and there. And normally I get stuck on a show, finish the show, and then I won't watch anything for a couple weeks and actually get some stuff done. I occasionally get to go out, and kind of one of my big releases, I like to go golfing. I'll go golf all by myself with my earphones in. I golf pretty fast, and actually, I live here in Newcastle, right across from I-44, so I go to this little crappy golf course. And normally, if I'm having a bad day, need to release a little energy, you'll see me there, because it's perfectly acceptable to hit the crap out of a golf ball. Not perfectly acceptable to hit the crap out of a customer. Yeah. So I'm not any good at all. I'm a terrible golfer. Yeah, you get to hit it. I love music, and so I have my earphones in, playing music, the smell of fresh cut grass, and hitting the crap out of a golf ball is never a bad way to spend some time.
Yeah, I know exactly which golf course you're talking about, the one right there next to the bar.
JR's. You literally have to go inside the bar. You literally have to go inside the bar to go pay the lady to go golf. But so
you've got the Midget. Is there anywhere, but I know you said IndyCar, but is there anywhere more on the dirt side that you'd like to see yourself go to?
I mean, I'd really like to go and be full-time national guy. What we do here with the West Series is great, and I got to thank Eric Fenton for everything he does, especially for Oklahoma and midget racing. When I got out here, there was nothing going on for midgets in Oklahoma, and really my first year here was the first year of West, and so I've really got to kind of see that program grow. But I'd love to go out on the national tour, racing, Powri National. I'd love to go run some Silver Crown or car races. I love Silver Crown cars. Those fat bottom girls, they are they are special. Basically, I'm a kid. I'm a helmet bag guy. My name's AJ. I was named after AJ Foyt. I'm a little bit, when it comes to a history-wise, racing history, just absolutely love it. And I would love to be, in a position like AJ was. That's kind of my big deal. And I've made some nice inroads as far as IndyCar wise. And Sarah Fisher, I developed a friendship with Sarah Fisher, and she's been great to me and helping me with that kind of stuff. And she, making some inroads IndyCar wise. But for me, my whole deal was I would never want to get in a position where I couldn't, if I go, my big deal isn't even necessarily IndyCar. I want to go race Indy Lights. I don't know if I can make it in IndyCar, but I'd at least like to go try the feeder series. But I'd always want to be able to continue and race as much as I could in a midget and sprint car and anything else, just because I think it makes you a better driver. Just the seat time, period. It makes you better. It makes you quicker. Those reflexes, there's nothing you can't spend enough time in a simulator to actually get. You'd have to spend literally all day in a simulator to even get a tenth of what you could by going out and just racing more. And there's so many testing limitations in IndyCar and Indy Lights that even if I ever had the opportunity to go race on that level, I would still want to. And basically, if I was decent enough and had the funding to go race that, I'd want to be in a midget, a sprint car, anytime I could. I loved that whole chasing 200 deal with BC just because that's like a dream come true for me. Being able to run that was what I did when I raced motorcycles. I was riding a motorcycle that many days a week, and so for me that just would feel normal for me in a race car. I would. A lot of guys would get overwhelmed with a schedule like that. But for me, that's ideal. I'd like to be in the seat 4 or 5 times a week if I could, and whether it's practicing, racing, anything. I love. Everybody says I'm an adrenaline junkie, but I don't think so. I don't like roller coasters. I'm not a fan of heights. And if you follow me in my street car, if you're behind me in the street car, you're probably honking because I drive pretty slow on the roadway. But man, I love racing, and it's pretty much anything. My dad said several times that I'd probably race toothpicks in a rain gutter if I thought I had a chance to win. So I just anything. Yeah, I'll race go-karts. I'll race anything. I'm not a stock car guy in any way, shape, or form, and really not a big fan of stock car, especially on the highest level. But man, you say I can go drive next weekend, I'll be there. I'm the opinion anything basically driving anything is better than sitting on the couch. You'll learn more from driving literally anything than sitting on the couch or in a simulator chair. So,
well, man, I mean that pretty much covers it all. So you're going to try to make it to DuQuoin. It'll depend on how the car, the new motor goes. But where can the fans see you next for sure?
For sure, absolutely, Chili Bowl. We're going to make a big push for DuQuoin. We were trying to make a push for Turkey Night, but basically I think we can have the motor done for Turkey Night, but I don't think I can have the funding to get to California for Turkey Night. So I think DuQuoin will probably be next on our list, but for sure Turkey Night, or for sure Chili Bowl. Trying to find a ride for the shootout, but my luck hasn't gone well so far. But 100% will be at Chili Bowl. Probably by the family restrooms will be pitted because our trailer's the only one small enough to fit in there. But that'll be next, and then after that, I actually talked to a guy a couple nights ago about possibly going down and trying my hand from mid-December through New Year's in New Zealand. So basically, I have to buy a plane ticket, and I won't make any money, but I'd get to go down and drive. So
seat time.
Seeing if I can put that together. That's all I want is seat time. So we'll see if I can put something together there, and then I'd love it. First of all, I just want to go to New Zealand, period. But I random deal with a guy from Australia, and he has a buddy who has a car. I don't even know if it's a great car, but I'll go drive. So and probably Chili Bowl after that, and well, definitely Chili Bowl. And then we'll see if they do this whole Florida deal again for the Powri opener. If they do, we'll probably be there.
Possibly New Zealand, but definitely Chili Bowl. I know we'll all be coming down near the family restrooms. Come talk to AJ here. And where can the fans find you on the web? If you got some social media they can follow your racing career?
Facebook, simple. It's just AJ Burns. I don't know how many AJ Burns there are, but pick the one with the race car. Actually, I think it's a picture. I don't know if it's a race car. It might be a picture of me that TJ Crawford took. On Twitter is ADUB 528. 528 is my motorcycle number, so that one's everybody will always think it's weird, but that's my motorcycle number. And then Instagram is AJ528.
All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on tonight. Good luck for 2019. We hope to see you at DuQuoin, and definitely can't wait to see you at Chili Bowl.
I appreciate it, sir.
So once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was the driver of the number 27 Boss Chassis Midget Sprint Car AJ Burns, what a great interview we had there. It's one of our longer interviews, but a really good one. Just didn't really want to stop him from talking. He had a great story and great information, great insight on midget sprint car racing and what it takes to be a midget sprint car driver. And of course, working at Victoria's Secret, that's interesting for a young man like himself. Like I said, you can find him at the Chili Bowl this year, possibly at DuQuoin. We'll see what happens there. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at Monstar Productions, at Monstar Pro on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. You can also find us at Full Velocity Radio. Want to give them a plug. Thank you to Full Velocity Radio for getting us started on their network. We're going to be starting a whole new deal with them with the Full Velocity Radio deal, but we're also going to be on Full Velocity TV there. So I want to give a big shout out to them. You can find me at Jake Keel on Facebook if you want to talk to me there. Instagram, I believe I'm Monstar98 with 2 R's in there. And then, of course, on Twitter, fake Jake Keel, exactly how it sounds. So go find us out there. And thank you guys for listening in. And as always, go out to your local dirt track. Go down to your local track, wherever it is. Support local racing. It's what keeps us in business. We want to see each and every one of you at a racetrack this season. Bring somebody new to the racetrack. It's something that you can just share a passion with them. And while you're at it, go on iTunes, go on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play. Give us a rating, give us a review. It only helps us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start reading some of those reviews off on air. So if you want to hear yourself on the air, just give us a rating, a review. Give me a message. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to bring up points. If you've got something you want to say, I'd love to have you on the show. So please give me a holler. And as always, guys, take care. And here they come off turn number 4, coming to the checkered flag, your winner, the Race Shop Podcast.